Boxing is full of champions you wonder how they got here. Some of them became champion by email because the WBC decided to create a special status for the former champion. Others just got lucky and the champion moved up a weight class, which also allowed them to get the title without having to fight. And finally, you have some who, despite being on a losing streak, still somehow managed to get a fight for the belt. But well, at least they did have to fight for it. On the other hand, you have some champions that have always been overlooked and lack visibility, such as the current WBC middleweight champion El Caballo Bronco. Carlos Adames is a Dominican boxer who's been undefeated for 7 years now, coming from a poor family of 35 siblings, so first of all, congrats to his mom. And he decided to take on boxing in order to seek out a better future, which worked out very well for him since he's now the highest paid Dominican boxer. Carlos Adames is a very aggressive and powerful fighter with a lot of experience, close to 300 wins in the amateur and only 7 losses. He currently holds a record of 25 wins, 18 by knockout and only 1 losses. He also has a draw against Hamza Shiraz, which should have been a win, but you know, sometimes judges in boxing, you don't really know what goes in their pocket. And that fight against Hamza Shiraz, well, he also showed that despite being a strong offensive boxer, he's also very good defensively, because Hamza Shiraz is a talented fighter, very tall, with a good reach, so he always tries to keep you at a good distance to do some damage from long range. And despite that, Carlos Adames managed to break the distance with his head movement, get close to him and fight on the inside, and did quite some damage. He's well known for his aggressivity and his offense, but he can also defend and counter punch very well. We saw it against Amo Williams recently. He said before the fight that he wanted to show Austin Williams that there's different level in that game because Williams doesn't have the same experience in the amateur as he does, and we saw it during the fight. I mean, Amo Williams did respond pretty well because Adames was trying to break his spirit. He could have ended the fight if he went to the body more often, but instead he tried to really knock him out going for the head. And Amo Williams managed to stay in the fight until the very end and lost at the decision. But still, he got outlanded 2-1, so yeah, Carlos Adames was really trying to make him give up or take him down because he's a fighter that throws a lot of punches with a very high volume. And I believe he could have unified all the belt in the middleweight category. The other champion are Johnny Beck, who unified the IBF and the WBO, but Johnny Beck got tested positive to some drug and is now suspended until the end of the year, so not a boxer that he could have fought now. And then you have Lara. Lara is a pretty old fighter. I mean, he's 43 years old now, so I don't think that would have been a huge challenge for Carlos Adames. But for some reason, he still decided to move up to the super middleweight category. Even though he said, anyone with a belt, anyone with a name, I'm ready. I don't think he was ready for the rising star of the middleweight category, Yohanli Hernandez, a Cuban fighter with only 10 wins and 9 knockouts. Still very impressive, and recently he stopped Terrell Gosha in a fight that was maybe stopped a little bit prematurely, but still, I don't think that's a boxer Carlos Adames wanted to deal with. And instead, he might meet the next fighter on that list, the current WBC super middleweight champion, le Solide Mbili, a Franco-Canadian fighter who was born and grew up in Cameroon. If you don't know about Cameroon, just think about Cedric Doumbé and Francis Ngannou, because you know, these fighters from Cameroon, they usually punch very hard, and Mbili is no exception to that. He has a record of 29 wins and 24 knockouts, with 1 draw against Lester Martinez, his last fight, and that draw also showed some of the flaws Mbili has. I mean, his profile is very similar to Carlos Adames. He also has quite some experience in the amateur with more than 100 wins, and he's very aggressive, so he tries to dominate, he's powerful, he's the type of boxer whose highlights are as long as his fights, so usually after the 3rd, 4th round you're pretty much done with it. But his defense is maybe not as good as Carlos Adames one because he takes a lot of hit, and in the Lester Martinez fight, although it did quite some damage to Lester Martinez, he also got counterpunch a lot. But sometimes with Mbili, it feels like he doesn't really care about the decision because he believes that you're gonna go down at some point. And so even if you hit him, as long as his chin is holding up, you're going down. But I think that's something that could cost him at some point in his career if he's not improving his defense. He's also been calling out Canelo Alvarez a lot before the Terence Crawford fight and before Canelo decided to take his break. But I don't think Canelo wanted to deal with him because, well, Mbili is maybe one of the few fighters that could have potentially knocked out Canelo for the first time in his career. So yeah, a fighter that is very aggressive, fighting on his front foot a lot, high volume, high pressure, similar to Carlos Adames in that sense. And now with Adames moving up to the super middleweight category, we could have a very, very interesting weight class because, well, there's already Hamza Shiraz that moved up recently, then Lester Martinez, Canelo Alvarez that should come back, Christian Mbili, and finally Carlos Adames. We should have some very, very exciting fight in the near future. But now let's talk about another fighter who's as little as those two, but in a lower division, the current WBO Featherweight champion, El Divino, Rafael Espinoza, who currently holds a record of 28 wins with 24 knockouts, no losses, no draws. So yeah, very little. He's very different from the previous two because he doesn't have as much experience in the amateur, only 11 fights. So most of his game was shaped by the professional, and in the professional he spent the first part of his career in Mexico, so there was not a lot of visibility on this fighter and nobody really knew what he was about. And he's also very different for the category because he's 6'1", 1m85, which makes him the tallest champion in featherweight history. And what's even more exciting about Rafael Espinoza is that he's not even using his size. I mean, when they asked him, why don't you use your height? He said, I don't like to use my height, I like to fight. And you can tell from his style that it's definitely true because, well, he fights a lot from the inside. He's very different from Hamza Shiraz, who's tall as well and uses the distance. In his case, he goes inside, uses the uppercut a lot to get you inside, to do some damage, a lot of combo, a lot of volume as well. And when you try to step back, he will get you with the jab and the hook because you get in the perfect distance for him. He made himself a name against Robesi Ramirez in the first fight when he won the WBO title. It was named the upset of the year at the time. And if you haven't seen that fight, you should definitely have a look because it showed perfectly who Rafael Espinoza is, a fighter with a lot of heart that is hard to knock out. Robesi Ramirez managed to take him down, but even after that, even when Espinoza was hurt, he still managed to win the last round and knock down Ramirez in the final round. I don't even think he still remembers that fight because of how hurt he was, but he was very impressive. And after that, he knocked out all of his opponents in his last 4 title defense. And in the second fight against Robesi Ramirez, he also managed to finish him. Yeah, maybe the most underrated fighter of that list, a guy that is very amazing in a weight class that is stacked because you have names like Brendan Figueroa, Nick Ball, Carlos Castro, Stephen Fulton, or even just below, Naoya Inoue, Nakatani. You also have the next fighter of that list, the current WBC featherweight champion, Shu Shu Carrington. I mean, this guy, what he did to Carlos Castro was incredible. That fight was really, really good. And Bruce Carrington, well, I don't know if he's already at the level of Rafael Espinoza because he's still very young. He rose to the title very fast. I think he needs to still fight and defend his title a little bit more. But his fighting style is also exciting and very impressive. I mean, he's from Brownsville, Brooklyn, so you know, the same place where Mike Tyson is from. But he's not built as Mike Tyson. He's also pretty tall for the featherweight category. Even though he can use his height to his advantage, he has different way of fighting. He can fight from inside like Mike Tyson, but he can also bait and counter punch like Floyd Mayweather. 2 fighters that he took his game from, so yeah, very complete boxer. Who's also very smart. He moves in the ring very well. He knows how to position his feet. He can throw some combo, mix between the body and the head. So, you know, he can finish you in different ways. And his chin seems better than average. I mean, he took some hit before, but he never got knocked out as well. So yeah, a boxer that I really, really like to watch. Very exciting, also elegant in the ring. So, you know, a beautiful boxing style. I really hope that he can remain undefeated because that's a category that is very, very strong. A lot of the boxers are very good. I mean, we already mentioned them before. And Shu Shu Carrington is a very ambitious fighter. So I wouldn't be surprised if he tries to go for the biggest fish in the division. And that could cost him as well. But, you know, that's what we want to see. We want to see the best against the best. And we are tired of seeing fighters that are just dodging and making sure that they stay immaculate, but gives us some boring and one-sided fights. So yeah, he's one of my favorite fighters in that list with the last one. But before to talk about him, just wanted to remind you to not forget to like the video if you liked it, obviously. Comment if you have anything to say about the video, about the fighter, or about the list. And don't forget to subscribe as well if you like those type of content. I'm talking about sports. And say some stuff that people don't always dare to say, so you can see more in the channel. For the last one, I cheated a little bit. I'm going to be honest with you because he's not a champion anymore. He's the former WBO lightweight champion, but he got stripped of his title for missing weight at one of his fights. And he also got a win that was overturned to a no contest after being tested positive for smoking marijuana. So yeah, not a perfect kid, but you know, my favorite fighter is Tank Davis, so compared to him, that's already a little bit better. I'm talking about Keyshawn, the businessman Davis, for those who didn't realize yet. He has a record of 14 wins and 10 knockouts, a very exciting boxer to watch because he's unique in his style, a very wide stance, and every time he hits it feels like he's sending power shots and he's trying to knock you out with each of his punches. He's like a sniper on the ring, so you know, he can throw a lot of good combos. He can also mix between the head and the body, so he always finds the perfect place to throw a punch, and he's really accurate, so he doesn't miss that much. He can also dodge, counter punch very well, so not a guy that is very mobile with his lower body, but with his upper body he sees everything coming. He's ahead of his opponent, so you know, we don't talk enough about his boxing IQ, but he's extremely smart. He's living in the ring, so you know, he likes to talk to the crowd, he likes to talk to the opponent side, he likes to taunt as well. So he's really in the zone every time he gets in the ring, and that's also the reason why I like him. I think this aspect of him is very similar to Tank Davis, and he just needs to really stay focused. I mean, we saw against Jamel Ortiz that he was already improving a lot, and now Keyshawn Davis has a fight scheduled against Nair Albright starting beginning of May. I don't think we will have the same Keyshawn Davis we had the first time that he fought against Nair Albright, and he won that time as well. Now, the only reason why he decided to take on a rematch is because Nair Albright won against his brother Kelvin, and after apparently they had a fight in the backstage, so you know, there's some personal beef between the two. That's the only reason why a rematch is happening. Other than that, he could already aim for one of the top dog of the category. Even welterweight, he can clean that division pretty easily. I think he's already much better than all of them, and that's why I wanted to end with him, because we could have one of the future prodigy of boxing, even though he's very polarizing and you never know with him, his career could end prematurely, but if he remains serious, he's a future champion and maybe a future legend.
Wait a minute!
If you're still here, you probably thought that I forgot about someone, and indeed, I almost forgot about him. I should have maybe even started the video with him, because this guy has been so overlooked and avoided by his peers that at this point he deserves his own video. I'm talking about a recent champion, the IBF super middleweight champion, El Tornado, Osleys Iglesias. This guy, every fighter in the division has been avoiding him. I mean, Canelo, who was the previous IBF champion, decided to not defend the belt so he doesn't have to fight him. Same for Munguia, who chose to go on a different path, and Hamza Shiraz decided to not pursue the belt as well, so he doesn't have to face Iglesias. I mean, I can understand why, because this guy has 13 knockouts in 15 fights. That's a 93% knockout ratio, which is pretty unique in that category. And he's not just powerful. I mean, when you look at him, he doesn't look like a powerful fighter because he has that type of deceptive power. He has a very good timing, and he tries to damage your body first, so you lower your guard and then he can go to the head, take you down. He's a very smart fighter, very technical as well. I mean, he started boxing at the age of 7 and he has close to 200 wins in the amateur. That's a boxer very few people talk about because, well, first he's Cuban, and Cuban boxers, they usually have to deflect from the federation in order to compete worldwide. And he's also the boogeyman of the super middleweight, so you know, all the very good fighters are avoiding him, and now that he finally got the opportunity to grab on the IBF belt, you will have to go through him if you want to unify the division. So that should give us a lot more exciting fight in the next few years. I think that division is becoming the most interesting weight class in boxing because, well, the media like to talk about the welterweight with Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Rolly Romero or Conor Benn, but honestly, technically, they are not as good as the boxers we have in the super middleweight division. So if you want to see some exciting fight, some interesting fight, that's the division you should check out, and that's the one to follow.